Adelaide Freemason Corrupt City Part 4. In the previous video I made a mistake regarding Prime Minister. I meant something else. You can't get away from them because everyone you know will, and strangers you meet, go to a different area and leave it and start afresh. You can't do that. You can't even go interstate because there's Freemasons everywhere, grinding the axe for the Freemasons that attacked you in the other state, coppers and all. Do you understand? I made an application to get a small transportable house passed by Willunga Council, and at Aldinga Beach. And they're saying in that, council's made an assessment of this development against the provisions, blah blah blah. The of its meeting held on the 21st of February 95 that the application be refused. And these smart Alex here caused all the problems, more Freemasons, and they paid the block out that I presented with the house to the council. And I was left with a block of land to pay off and no house. Perfect Freemason setup. In your letter you allege Mr. Pickard, a council servant, gave verbal approval, which he did, to consent to. On the basis of such verbal approval, you went ahead and purchased the building. Mr. Pickard has confirmed his advice was based on his knowledge of building code rules, and other public servants in engineering and everything all approved of this building I proposed to place at Aldinga Beach. But the council had a perfect setup there, urged on by the Freemason Lodge of Adelaide to refuse the approval of the house and approve the sale of the block, which is illegal. They're not supposed to approve of one and disapprove of the other. They've got to be approved together or nothing. It's just another Freemason setup. And then I really upset their booze when I moved in with a caravan on the block. And they got their knickers in a knot straight away, as you can see by the letter here. I cannot do anything if it's there it is again, notification of refusal of consent. They put X on everything. Nothing was any good to them. I got the papers to another transportable 3-bedroom home, and the council refused that as well. So then I took them to Environmental Resources and Development Court, notice of conference on the 3rd of March. And it went before Mr. Turner, Commissioner. And I beat the council with some simple photos of the tiny little dwellings they had passed, 10 or 20 around near where I had my block, but it wasn't good enough for them to pass a good new little house for me. And I beat them, and Sar and his mate Haggis were laughing as I stepped into the courtroom. "Ah, Mr. Case, you'll never get it passed here. It'll go to the Supreme Court and you'll be all thrown out." And they were laughing their heads off. Sure, they had Turner in their pocket, but when I sat down, Mr. Turner said, "Oh yes, these old second-hand transportable houses have been outlawed years ago," which was lies. But once I spread all the photos around him with the little houses the council had passed, he turned on the council and told them that they must have a forum with the council with me to get this 3-bedroom transportable passed. And the council's two senior public servants' jaws dropped to the ground. They never expected that. So I beat them there, but there's more coming. I noticed his secretary was busy typing right up to the point where he turned on the council and issued stern warnings about passing the house for me with the council forum. At that point, his secretary stopped typing and run out the door. She was smart like the court clerks and secretaries in the other courts earlier, typing away nonsense and bullshit and lies and helping to railroad innocent men when they come into court. So he said to the council, "I want this fixed and all done, and I'll sign the paperwork late in March, same month." So when we all arrived at the court, environmental court, Mr. Turner had died in a fatal road accident border town with his wife. Accident Inc. strikes again when the big Freemason big shots of Adelaide find that something or someone has gone against them. See what happens? It's happened to several people in this case so far, as I've mentioned. The motorcycle cop who caught the police prosecutor chief for drunk driving, he ended up dead, didn't he? Tony Bryant was talking too much, ex-police prosecutor. He ended up dead, didn't he? And there were several others who ended up dead. The Freemasons have got Accident Incorporated in perfect unison with their wishes, using nutcases to drive cars and set people up in swoop and stop and all sorts of other accidents at will. Because it was Colin Taylor that was asking if I was insured 2 evenings running before the accident. Now, who did he work for? Who was his party? John Bannon, Labor Party. Don't ever vote for Labor. See what they did to me, an honest working man. They'll ruin you as they see fit with their Mason connections. So there was a new commissioner, Hutchison's appointed. And when Ansar, number 1 public servant at Willunga Council, asked in a very grave, cold voice, He said, "When is the funeral?" and his words rang out down the hall. Commissioner Hutchison's dropped all the papers he was holding. He got such a shock he probably thought, "I'll be next." And I beat them. And they hated it. So when I got the house finished and livable, I was under attack again by the Freemasons. They sent 3 characters along in a car trying to run me off the road. I turned up at the police station at Christie's Beach and I was assaulted before I walked in the door. I knew I couldn't strike them back because the cameras would record, "Oh, you started it by striking him first." All Freemason setups, they use the cameras. I went and complained to Lorraine Rosenberg nearby, the member, because Constable Linda, they always put Linda in, Constable Linda in when they want to rub it in about the last setup. Remember Lyndall Merrill Sharp, virtually the same first name. She was the only one in the police station. I couldn't see a sergeant. Over this business, if I went and asked for a sergeant, the only time I'd see one is one of them running out the back door. So she's there covering it up with the cops, saying they can't do nothing. And these guys were following me around in their Ford when I was even in the bus going to Adelaide. And the end of their plate number on the car was 007. Just thought I'd remind you all, this is another photo shot of, or a photograph of, the transcripts from the Supreme Court. What does it say? Heather Leslie Heckett, respondent. They're trying to make out that she was the one giving evidence against me. But it turned out it was Lyndall Merrill Sharp in the magistrate's court all the time. I didn't see my accuser in court. These courts in South Australia are all rotting to the core the further you go up the tree. Couple of years later, driving through Albury, New South Wales, I was assaulted by the Albury police. Constable Owens, who was assaulting me, marching me around the car and all this stunt he got up to in front of his copper mates. Another complaint went nowhere. They never investigated nothing, and they're making up all this story about I come to an agreement and I'm happy with it. I wasn't happy. They've made this story up and sent this letter out to me, and I had nothing to do with it. They're just covering up for the cops as usual, because Constable Owen was off his nut with drugs, no doubt. Another paranoid schizophrenic cop. Wesfarmers sold the car at auction for $1,800. They never removed that much from their claim. I've got to consider this another evil crime committed by Adelaide Freemasons. The letter stating the total write-off of $7,500, they're all liars, because I took the repairer of that vehicle who bought it at auction, and it was repaired for $2,100. They're all liars and schemers, insurance companies. The repairer said he paid $1,800 for it as a repairable vehicle, and they don't even attempt to get the full value out of it at auction. Here it is, take it or leave it on the day, bang, $1,800. It was worth more like $4,000 because it only had very little damage. I estimated it to be $500. Well, he wanted to do a top-notch job and do other work on it. $2,100. Okay, it's still not bad. Fairly cheap. And at no point Wesfarmers ever said to me in writing they got $1,800 for it. This is a scam pulled on me by Wesfarmers. So-called write-off, though, and didn't mention they still had the so-called write-off, and no mention of reducing their claim by $1,800. All of them rotting to the core. At this point in Adelaide, when all the court cases were over, there was long black hair following me around in her 85 VK Commodore cop car, pulling up alongside me in the traffic and fingering her black hair under a police cap. Much to say, remember me, after all the Freemason set-up court cases were over and Mr. Bannon was off flying colours with all the medals struck by the media for him. Mr. Bannon never done nothing wrong. But that's strange. He was Treasurer and Premier at the same time, and he was responsible for the finances of the state bank. Then where did the 13 billion go in 92, Mr. ex-premier? This accident happened on the 22nd of March, 22nd of March rather, 92. And I noticed in years later, John Fain from ABC, he's retired now, was always saying 22 to 11, 22 to 8, 22 to 12. You see that number coming up again? Just like when big Freemasons, I call them, are on the media saying, oh yes, there were 92 people we want to question. 92 people are unaccounted. 92 this and 92%. They're all Freemasons. They all know exactly about what happened here. They're all sneering smartasses. Sneak attacks by the Labor crowd everywhere in Australia. In the courts, the media, they couldn't help themselves, braying like hyenas, wrecking and ruining decent people's lives with their little Freemason setups. Complete morons. Goat riders. They're always photographed with goats. The goat's head is in their Freemason symbol, as I've shown earlier videos. I got nothing good to say about these people. They're all ugly, dirty crowd that set me up and played games with their Freemason judges and magistrates in court. And they're extremely ugly, the authorities in Adelaide. Whatever you do, remember Yul Brynner said about smoking, whatever you do, don't smoke. Whatever you do, don't trust the courts, cops or the big shots in Adelaide. I've always said in other books I've written, the Freemasons are in their ivory towers lording it over everyone while they're getting shorn like sheep. Money ripped out of them, in other words. And exactly what are the Freemasons doing now? They're building a new Freemason skyscraper in North Terrace. Check up on Google, it's there. Remember, all of these people are the elites. They're in bed with the Jewish billionaire community, and they give all the contracts to, government contracts to the billionaires, and that's how all the billionaires increase their wealth. I worked for Victor Smorgon back in the 60s, and he was well known to have escaped out of Israel with Hitler on his heels. He come to Melbourne and went into the meat trade, and with his brother Sam. And the war made them because they all got the government contracts. You see, when they're Freemasons, they get all the government contracts. If they're Jewish Freemasons, they get all the government contracts. This is how they all make millions of dollars. They're sneaking in behind the lines when they have a proved Prime Minister in power, and suddenly when he leaves, he comes in with backside out of his pants, and when he leaves as a multi-millionaire with mansion houses, like I could mention one of the current Prime Ministers now, with bayside mansions coming out of poverty-stricken housing. Nothing good to say about any of them. They are ruthless, and you must watch your health and become knowledgeable about your own health, and don't believe some doctors because they are telling you BS. about your health. Get several opinions and go interstate and get some of them if you've got a health issue. Do not believe everyone in the health business. It's like Nigel told me from John Martin's department store where he was one of the managers. I said, what are they like in Adelaide in 1986 when I was doing work for him? He said, well, Ray, try the more rotting to the core the further you go up the tree in Adelaide. And he wasn't telling the truth. There were far more rotting to the core than what he said. Look what the ex-police prosecutor said. If he was charged with anything, he would take the first flight out. Well, he never had the chance. They were watching him all the time, and he ended up getting killed in the boat accident. And his live-in partner, Steve, was telling me lies all the way, even taking me down and showing me the new boat in the backyard. The reality was a speedboat come along and hit their boat and killed him. If you want to live in Adelaide, buy massive four-wheel drives with massive bull bars on them, and only semi-trailers can be used to take you out. Don't drive piddly little cars because they're easily wiped out by lunatics they have at the nut house. Remember George, the clerk of the court? He was in the nut house, signed in with mental illness. And all the ones like Colin Taylor, he was out there because he described the place well to me. The nuts were following each other around looking vicious. And my Auntie Celine at the convent, another rotting Freemason set-up merchant, along with Colin Taylor. All of them. Don't vote Labor whatever you do. I'm not pushing anyone else, just don't vote Labor. They're rotting to the core because they made John Bannon president after all this rot went on. And I was being attacked in his Freemason courts while he got off scot-free from overseeing the disappearance of $13 billion. Anyone else, ordinary man, would be charged with a grand robbery on a grand scale, but no, not Freemasons. See, they never go to jail. Never ever go, like Dr. Fauci. They're all talking about putting him in jail. Well, one of those Mason videos said he's a Freemason. Freemasons don't go to jail. Understood? That's why the bigwigs never go to jail. They're Freemasons. When are you all going to understand? You're paying your taxes to Freemason government. You're working for Freemason CEOs. And when it comes time to kick the bucket, the Freemasons are burying you and taking whatever they want off your carcass. Got it? This video is published without prejudice. I don't hate any of these Freemasons, I just despise them. There is a difference. And I do not trust them. They know it. Again, I warn you one more time. If you're a decent person, don't go near Adelaide. Don't stay in the place because you have a death spiral there because they don't care who's murdered, and it's a well-known saying, you can be murdered in Adelaide and nothing never done about it. I did notice there was a woman called Winchester stabbed to death in a phone box, and then they were charging Colin Winchester, the Federal Police Commissioner. They were charging Eastman with the murder of Colin Winchester, the Federal Police Commissioner, if you remember that. There was a lady called Turner, and she was killed. Strangely enough, a month later, the commissioner I've spoken about was also dead. And there was a young girl, 13 years old, with the same surname as me, Case. She had a heart attack and died. Check out all the other 3 videos, part 1, 2 and 3, and this is part 4. Adelaide Freemason Corrupt City, part 4.